you all for joining us.
Of course.
Oh, and I see Lauren's name in here now.
Yep.
Is she having luck?
Yeah, I'm in on my phone. I'm trying to see if I can get in on my laptop.
Okay.
So can I ask you something, Todd?
Yes, please.
So when I want to show the video and the pictures, I just share my screen?
Exactly. So you'll have those as long as you have them open on your desktop, so that you can share your screen. You can click on that and go from there.
Can I do a quick test right now?
Please do.
Okay. Host disable attendee screen sharing.
Oh, Ari, can you please allow Maria Jose to have co-host rights?
Yes, let me see how I can do that. Let Maria, well, okay, sorry. Let me go down you can add her as well. There it is.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I didn't think of that.
But, there we go.
You got her?
Yep.
We'll stop other screen sharing. Do you want to continue? Oh, okay. Okay. It's just the same thing as I was. Yeah.
You got it.
Great. It was just a quick test. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Yeah.
This is a great lineup. Very exciting.
Well, I think we'll go ahead. Oh, do we have Lauren with us yet?
I'm here.
You're there. Great. Thanks, Lauren. Are you on your phone or are you on a laptop? Are you able to see the various, and do you also have co-host abilities?
She doesn't.
I'm gonna make you a co-host as well.
Okay.
Oh, I'm not allowed to, frankly. Ari, I don't have that power.
Wow.
Only host can, and I'm a co-host, so.
Oh, I should make you, okay, let's see. Oh, wait, Lauren, okay, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Lauren actually is very, very important because she's going to help monitor hands. If you've got questions, if there are things that you want to pose in the chat box, she's going to be really helpful with monitoring those kinds of things. I will say, as a matter of process, we're going to take the last 15 minutes for some conversation about the things that you're working on, some ideas that you might have, some questions that you might have for us. So you might want to hold questions till then, but if something pressing arises, feel free to raise your hand or type it into the chat box, and Lauren is going to help us out by acknowledging that. So welcome, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. We are from Montclair State University, and we have the CETL Fellows Program, the Community Engaged Teaching and Learning Fellows Program, which is what we're going to be talking about. So our purpose here is we assume that you're here because you're interested perhaps in opportunities for infrastructure at your own institutions, strategies for how you can do professional development for faculty and staff who are doing community engaged work, and maybe you have your own model and you're looking for maybe a different one, or you're looking for some other ideas. This is something that we've implemented over the past 6 years in this form, and we keep redeveloping and redeveloping and redeveloping. And we're very pleased with what we have. And of course, we have a lot of changes to make moving forward, but we simply want to share with you what we're up to so we can talk about that and think about ideas. So my name is Todd, and I'm a faculty member here at Montclair State. I'm in the School of Communication and Media, and I'm a facilitator of the CETL program. We're also joined by Brian.
Hi, my name is Brian Murdoch. I'm the director of the Center for Community Engagement and a colleague of Todd's, and is where the CETL program sits within the institution.
My name is Crystal. I'm the assistant director of the Center for Community Engagement, and so I help out on some of the logistical stuff in terms of the CETL Fellows Program, and I also coordinate our Bonner program.
Hi, I'm Lauren Brodowski. I'm the Community Engaged Learning Coordinator at the Center with Brian and Crystal, and I'm also a graduate student in music therapy.
And an AmeriCorps member.
And an AmeriCorps member, yes.
Hello, my name is María José García Vizcaíno. I'm a professor at the Department of Spanish and Latino Studies, and I have been a fellow in the Community Center for Community Engagement for 2 years, Montclair State University.
Manveer, are you here? I haven't seen your name actually.
She's not here yet. So she says she's having some challenges because she didn't update her Zoom account.
Ah, yes, okay.
And so she has to update that first, because the way that this Zoom's set up, it won't allow you to access it from the web. So she's updating her account. Once she gets in, she'll pop in and she'll introduce herself, or more likely she'll wait till her.
Yeah, because she'll be talking about her own particular work. So that's terrific. So we are here, in housed within a unit that's called the Center for Community Engagement. So Brian, Crystal, head this up. You want to share with us about the center?
Sure. The Center for Community Engagement is located and resides under the Associate Provost. So we're in the Provost's office for all intents and purposes. The center is about 5 years old, and it is the primary unit on campus that gives concrete expression to the university's civic and community engagement mission and strategic priorities. There are other, obviously, it's a large university with with close to 23 or 24,000 students, and 5 schools and 5 colleges and 2 schools. So it's very large. There are many points or units on campus that do engagement as well. But we like to think of ourselves as the primary unit on campus whose sole responsibility is to ensure that the university's strategic priorities related to civic and community engagement are being met and achieved. And so that's primarily what the center does. And we'll get into a little bit more about its specific structure, programs, projects, and initiatives a little later on. Crystal, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's pretty well designed. We do have here sort of the history of our center. And I think that, so starting in are we going through each of these?
Yep, yeah.
Starting in 1996, Montclair State established the Service-Learning Program, which grew out of 25 years of commitment to experiential and cooperative education. So the Service-Learning Program then, over time, developed into our center. So we started with just that program initially. In 1998, the University Senate approved the service learning criteria. So our University Senate has like a very specific design for what service learning specifically is. We have moved away from that a little bit to be more understanding of all of the different ways that you can do community engagement, but we do have an official definition by the university of what service learning is.
Do you want me to take this?
Yes.
Yeah. So, in the early part of the of our history between 1998 and 2012, we were the program and the center was made up of transdisciplinary teams of faculty who collaborated with community partners on an issue-based model. And so we basically grouped faculty around areas of literacy, aging, digital divide, and a lot of other different kinds of things, a lot of different kinds of issues as a way to create sustainable long-term partnerships, and to be so that we could, from one semester, from semester to semester and year to year, we would always be able to have students be engaged in the work with our partners. And over the years, we had recruited about 50 fellows and enrolled around 10,000 students. As we moved on, we began to get a sense that the service learning program might not be capable of meeting all the needs of faculty, staff, and the university's broader strategic priorities related to civic and community engagement. We started to see that we would meet people on campus, would be in meetings, would be discussing and finding out that there was a lot of other civic engagement going on that we had no idea about, and felt like, oh, we should have a better idea of what's going on campus. We would want to support that. We want to be We want to be knowledgeable about that. And so we started to think about maybe the service learning program needed a little bit of updating and expansion. And so we started to do landscape analysis and strategic planning. And in doing that, we came across this quote, which for me has sort of was the one quote that I think helped us move from where we were as a service learning program and then thinking of ourselves more that we needed to become actually a center for the campus. And I think it really captured for me at the time where we were and where we needed to go. And it just as service learning gains institutional prominence and becomes associated with campus-wide initiatives, the institutional process reaches a tipping point at which a shift occurs. And I think that's where we were, was that we could feel this coming. We could feel that we weren't, that service learning had sort of, reached this point where it was no longer it wasn't meeting the needs of the university. And so this idea of shift away from supporting and promoting service learning for its own sake to supporting and promoting broader campus-wide initiatives that can be advanced by service learning. So service learning would then become a vehicle rather than just a pedagogy. And this really helped us to think about where we needed to go. So we spent a couple of years trying to, we wrote a white paper sort of designing the service learning program, but in doing so, we realized that the service learning program by itself wasn't going to be broad enough. It wasn't going to be sufficient to carry the weight that we wanted to become the center for the campus. And we needed to create opportunities for synergy and partnership and for engagement. And so we started to just build out from the service learning program. We added the Bonner Leader Program in 2007, 2008. We added an AmeriCorps program. We became a Bringing Theory to Practice demonstration project. We helped develop a learning community. Through the Bringing Theory to Practice demonstration project, we developed a civic engagement minor, leadership development, got involved with the University Assisted Community School. So these are the larger initiatives that started to drive our work and also helped us to develop not just partnerships and synergies for opportunities to do engagement, but also to develop grant projects. And so we've been able to develop and attract a lot of funding as a result of the development of the center, which was formally designated by Susan Cole in 2015.
Thanks, Brian. So within this center, and the center is so important, and this is the reason we talk about it, because it gives us the infrastructure that we need, and it gives us that housing within academic affairs where we can really get things done that we need to get done. And I'm sure that everyone here knows how important infrastructure on your campus is. If you don't have it, it's really hard to get things done. With infrastructure and with support from administration, it makes things not only easier, but practices are much better. So we have the CETL program. Now this program in one way, shape, or form, as Crystal's going to talk about in just a little bit, has been in existence since the mid-90s, but it's gone through a lot of changes. And really it's been only over the past 6 years that it's taken its contemporary form. And as I mentioned before, we continue to improve it and redevelop it or reconceive it a bit. But the nutshell of this program is that it's a 2-year developmental program, and it convenes these biannual cohorts of faculty, staff, and community partners for programmatic learning. So as they move through these cohorts, which we'll talk about a bit more moving on, first-year cohort people are really working on developing their projects. Second-year cohort members are really implementing those projects, yet they work together. And I'll talk about the teams that we use so that right? That they learn from each other and they can coach one another as they move through. So this is about mentorships, and we don't like using the word mentor. That's not actually, by decision, it's not a word that we use, but what we're trying to do is pair the second-year cohort members and first-year cohort members and even program alumni together so that they can really give feedback, build connections, build overlaps and synthetic kinds of connections, and really learn from each other to improve what they're doing. And these projects that they're working on pertain to pedagogy, what we might think of as modes or varieties of service learning or community engaged teaching and learning. It applies to research, such as community-based participatory action research methodologies, where you're working with community members as partners in empirical research and scholarship. And it also pertains to applied projects like infrastructure building, such as building a health clinic, creating a health clinic with community members in their communities. So those things overlap, of course, teaching, research, application, those really overlap in very important ways. You might have research projects in your course that students are working with community members on. But those are the three modes that our partners, our fellows are working on. The purpose of this is really, fundamentally, we want to build a culture. And Brian is going to talk about the community of practice idea in just a little bit. This culture is crucial as we expand and as we build connections, as we build new possibilities and new learnings and new ways. Right? It really helps us to do a better job and to really foster an expanding culture and interest group on campus so that there's something generative about our values and about our practices. We're also trying to foster topical learning. So as fellows are working through the program, they're learning about various practices and strategies for teaching and learning, for conducting community-based participatory action research and other methodological research methods. They're learning about how to build partnerships and networks and do infrastructure building. So that's really a quick overview of this. We do use online. We have a learning community, an LMS. We use Canvas, and we have our reading resources, for example, as well as other resources. This is just a screen grab to show you some of the linkable resources we have. And now, Crystal, if you don't mind talking about the history of this, because it's important to think about how we got to where we are with our cohort model.
Yeah, so we started with a cohort model when we originally had designed this program. And I say we, but I think I was like, I don't know, 10 when it first started. So I wasn't actually there, but it was originally a cohort model, which was a one-year model that fellows would go through the program and they'd participate for that year and then hopefully continue to stay on. From that, we sort of moved away from that, which sometime around 2008, 9-ish, it was right as I was coming on to the center, into a more individualized scene. So instead of having a cohort of fellows each year, we made the application a rolling process, and so that fellows could apply at any time throughout the year, and we'd work with them for that year to sort of develop their course and move on from there. We did pair them informally with mentors for who had done the service learning classes before, so that they'd have some guidance, as well as obviously from like our staff. And we got to a point where we realized that while that was working to a degree, it wasn't really working to the full extent that it could to really advance community engagement across the campus and to create that community that Brian's going to talk a little bit more about. Fellows would come in, sometimes they'd stay and continue to be engaged with other faculty. Sometimes they do sort of that year, do that service learning class, and then we really wouldn't see or hear from them again. So we realized that if we really wanted to build a community, we really wanted to create campus change, that we did have to go back to sort of the cohort model. I think we took probably about a year and a half where we met pretty consistently. We looked at values, we looked at things that we wanted to do for the program, we looked at how we'd like to structure it. And that's how we came to the model that we're at now, where we have a cohort model, but it's a 2-year model. So fellows come in their first year, which is more about learning, Their second year is a lot more of implementation or creating a project, as Todd talked about. And the hope is that our faculty continue to stay engaged in that community because they have that opportunity to do that. We try to make all of those, the meetings where all of the fellows get together, a little bit more fun. We have catering. We try to schedule those at a time where all of our faculty can attend. So we look at all of the schedules of all of the faculty and their teaching schedules, and try and find a time that fits where nobody's teaching. So they can all attend. So some years we've had that meeting at night where we do dinner and then go into whatever we're doing. Currently this year, for the most of this year before March hit, we did breakfast on Friday mornings because that seemed to be the time that worked a little bit better for everyone. So we kind of try to make sure that whenever we're meeting in a time that works really well for all of the fellows to be able to really engage. And to really focus on creating that sort of community. And I think that the way that our fellows program is structured and designed now leads to more of a sense of a community, and it allows our work to grow a little bit more. And we have found that most of the faculty who have gone through that, because we're now a couple of years in, we continue to stay engaged with, and they continue to grow and expand on programs and things that they started while in the fellows program.
Great, thanks, Crystal. So as you look at the photos here, to get at how it works logistically, we meet once a month as a full group. And that, as Crystal mentioned, was this past year on a Friday morning. And it's important to note that we always had food with this, because as you were working together and talking and doing it over food, there's something really about the way it facilitates conversation and a comfort level and a just kind of casual atmosphere. I have a feeling in this current budget year, and this is something important to note because this is true for everybody, right? Food might have to, be reduced or minimized a bit for budget reasons, but I want to point out that if you can see in the photos, we're eating, and it's just a nice way of doing it. So we would meet once a month as a full group, but something I'll talk about a little bit later are breakout groups, what I call coaching teams, and they work together. They meet at least once a month outside of the full group meeting because they're working on very specific tasks. If I can show you, this is a syllabus for this year. And so here we lay out what our goals are. We lay out who the second year cohort members are, who the first year cohort members are, and we provide a calendar here. And I'll talk about the calendar a little bit later in more detail because I want to get at its developmental nature. But as you can see, we have plenary meetings, and in between, we have certain group breakout meetings that should happen. And they have certain objectives, things to talk about. And it's mostly geared towards working on the development of first-year fellows projects. And I'll talk about the development of that a little bit later. But that's how this is structured. So typically, people are meeting at least twice a month. Once is a small breakout at least, and then once in a full cohort. So we're going to talk about some details about the program. And I think we should talk about the motivating values, about really when we reconceived it, what we wanted to get at. As Crystal said, we met and met and met and met, and we read and read and looked at other models. And we had certain values that were really important. Those drove our decision making. So the first of these, Brian is going to talk about, is really basic and important, the community of practice. I
always do that. I apologize. So yes, so could we have the first bullet? Yep. So a community of practice is something that we sort of backed into with this program. I think it's become much more prevalent. It's something that I hear more of. I don't know if it's one of that phenomenon where you get a new car and you see it everywhere after you get it. But once we started to look at community of practice and started considering it, we started to see it more and more and more and more. And we were like, oh, maybe this is not so new. But a community of practice definition loosely is a group of people who share a common concern, a set of problems, or an interest in a topic, and who come together to fulfill both individual and group goals. And so Ari sort of helped us to think about this a little bit more deeply and getting into this idea of a community of practice. She had come up during one of our work and did a workshop for us, for our fellows, and got us off on this. Again, this is not something that we just started from a starting line and implemented. This is an iterative process that has developed over the last few years with input from scholars and from the faculty members who are participating in it. So these are the characteristics of a community practice: shared enterprise, opportunities for interaction, mutual dependence, requires groups to have diverse membership and expertise and knowledge. This is really important. And I think it adds dynamism to the community. We have faculty from every college and school on campus. And this becomes, I think, an attractive component of the Fellows Program, because it's one of the places where faculty can go on campus and actually have conversations with other people in other disciplines in a deep and meaningful way. And it creates a lot of very rich talk and sharing and support. Overlapping set of histories, practices, and understandings, being able to reproduce, focuses on development of each member's seniority. As you can see, we do have it's a 2-year model where we have a first year and second year. So we have built that in. And then obviously having respect for diverse and minority views is very important. So we like to think of it, the community of practice, both as a strategy, which is that it helps us with the dissemination of sharing of best practices, helps us to develop our colleagues and the members of the group professionally, and building a sense of meaningful connection amongst the members. And then we think of it also as an outcome, and that is to build a community of creative and resourceful practitioners who are mutually supportive and able to advance and perfect pedagogical approaches. I just need to move this because I can't say it. That lead to effective teaching and learning practices and institutional change. And so we think that we're on this road. We actually had a group of students, graduate students from industrial, what is it? Industrial, help me, Todd.
Industrial organizational psychology.
That's right. Industrial organizational psychology, who actually we gave them a job to do, which was to look at our program, to look at the Fellows Program and see how closely it adhered to these characteristics and whether or not we were having some fidelity to the sort of broad idea of a community of practice. And so we have that report. If anybody's interested, we'd be happy to share it. But it seems like we are well on our way to achieving these goals and outcomes.
Okay, and oops, I have to.
And just to add, the faculty member whose graduate students did this was also a former fellow. So it was nice.
Well, I'm going to move things forward quickly because I want to make sure we have time to converse. I mean, obviously the folks who are attending this don't want to be PowerPointed to death, and we really want to be able to talk about the kinds of things that they're working with. So let me go fairly quickly through this. We can hear some examples of the kinds of things our fellows are doing, and then let's have some conversation. So a second motivating value is ethical, it's this institutional citizenship for the public good. I point you to Ira Harkavy at UPenn, who's been writing quite a bit about the importance of resuscitating Dewey's dream of seeing higher education as fulfilling a really important civic function, and that we all have responsibilities as institutional citizens to be responsive to and be partners with our communities.
We also feel like one of the guiding factors for our program should be the idea that each individual has the ability to take and have some empowerment in the way that our government is run, in the way that our world is run, which I think right now we're seeing literally play out in our news every day, that idea that we have a responsibility, I think one as a university, but also to specifically from our center and for our office, to really help in creating social equity and empowering our students, our faculty, our staff to feel empowered to change their government and to make sure that we're doing everything we can to create that social equity.
Good. A third motivating value, or a fourth one rather, is conscientiousness and reflective practice and building this in. And I'll never forget about maybe 14 years ago or so, I was at a conference and I was at a panel that was devoted to service learning. And one of the panelists said to the audience, you know, just get out there and give it a try and do it. And I thought, oh no, don't. I mean, don't, because there's so much risk with what we do, right? There's ethical risk, there's legal risks, there are risks for the communities. We can go in like bulls in a china shop and create real havoc for communities. And then our students leave and we leave and we leave the aftermath. So we have to be very conscientious and careful and reflective and aware of what we're doing. And I think our program is designed to help us with tools for reflecting and going in strategically and conscientiously with our strategies.
Yeah, and reciprocity, obviously, this is a value that is thoroughly integrated into the work that we do in the civic and community engagement movement. And so when we're doing the work with the fellows, we're thinking about how reciprocity works into the fellows program, and are always conscious about making sure that there's a mutual beneficiality that comes from the work that we're doing together with our fellows.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, something that I've been doing quite a bit of writing on recently is this idea about responsiveness and strategic flexibility. It's about switching from an ethic of control, where we maybe design our syllabi and our projects and we go into a community and tell them what to do, right? Shifting to what I'm calling an ethic of risk, where we have to be really partners, equal partners, and responsive. And when we run into problems, that we don't try to manage those problems from a top-down way, but through an invitational, partner-oriented way, which is about not just reacting to problems, but being responsive about problems. So those are things that we're trying to inculcate. I'll say that we have some design features as we've decided how to design this program, how to implement it. We wanted to emphasize cohorts. As Crystal had talked about, this shift away from individual kind of learning, even though that did have a mentor component in it, it didn't build the community of practice that we really wanted to build. So using cohorts enables us to build communities of practice. There's also this reliance on, as I talked about before, coaching teams. It allows people to build connections, especially across disciplines that they might otherwise not build. It allows the people who have already gone through the building process, who are now implementing, to be able to give feedback to those who are starting their own design processes. And it gives everybody new sets of eyes on what they're doing. This is an example from our online discussion boards from one of the breakout groups. And here the assignment was to talk about, hey, who are your prospective partners as you build this? And people are kind of asking questions for resources. They're suggesting, hey, this is a partner I think would be great. And then they're sharing and then they're talking. And then as we meet as a whole, we can really talk about those. And then we can even build and expand our network lists, which is really helpful for us. There's also project variety and choice. We have some people who are interested in developing, say, service learning courses or community engaged courses, other people who are doing IRB approved empirical research with communities. And we have others who are trying to build, as I mentioned before as an example, a health clinic, not build it for a community, but build it with a community. And that's infrastructure development. So we have partners or fellows who are working across all these different modes. And that kind of variety is really important. As well, it's important to have a chronological development. For time, I'm not going to go back to the syllabus, but in that calendar, actually I will very quickly. Each month, there's a particular topic, and in between those plenary meetings, the first year fellows have certain assignments. They might have, for example, a document that's called the project title and abstract, where they have to really propose, this is my project, this is the title, and this is my abstract. And they'll work on that with their team members, with their partners. Then they come to the plenary and we talk about those. And then the next month, they'll work on, here's a document called Project Site and Partner Summary, which is they're thinking about where will this work be done, with which partners, with which community partners. And then they're moving in the next month to thinking about what their project goals are, and so forth. So it's developmental, and they build. That way, the second years can really give feedback to the first years. And in each year, we don't do necessarily all the same topics. We shift things up. We might have some special guests who come in, like Ari has helped us out, as Brian mentioned, with topics that are of importance for our fellows. Another key design feature is ongoing connections with program alumni. And this is what Brian was talking about with the community of practice. If we're not keeping those people looped in, bringing them back in for panels and workshops with the current cohorts, we lose those connections. So keeping those people tapped in is really very important. And lastly, a design feature is emphasizing disciplinary breadth. When we were first doing this as a cohort model 6 years ago, it was interesting to us that most people were from the humanities and social sciences and some arts, but we just didn't have any math and science folks. And we've really worked hard to reach out and bring people in from a variety of disciplines. Here's an example of a flyer that we use in order for our information sessions. And we're really targeting people from across the colleges of the universities. And I think we've done a great job of diversifying. What happens? People make new connections, new ahas when they're thinking in interdisciplinary ways. And we also expand our community of practice across the whole campus. So with that said, we want to briefly share some examples. And I think, did Manveer join us?
Yes, I'm here.
Yay! Thank you for joining us. So Manveer, I'm very sorry because we've really over-talked. So I hope we will give you at least a number of minutes to talk about what you've been doing. But thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had a Zoom meeting this morning, worked perfectly fine, and then my app decided to update, which for some reason on my university laptop, I couldn't do it. So I apologize for joining.
That's always the way, always the way. Thank you.
Yes. Well, first, thank you for inviting me. This is really a great program and very, very valuable for us as fellows. And well, I'm from the marketing department and typically placed in a school and in a department where service learning is really not that prevalent as compared to some of the other colleges on campus. So I often struggle with how to incorporate it into my classes. And I think the Fellows Program has been really instrumental, and Brian, Todd, and Crystal have been just so awesome in sort of helping me find a way to do that. So, and the reason that I'm interested in this is that my research area is ethics and social responsibility, and I do stuff related to sustainability. And one of the things that I was really sort of saddened by or kind of blown away that in my classes, which might not necessarily be a sustainability class, I'll ask students these ethical questions and what do you think we should do? Are we as consumers responsible? And oftentimes they would say, no, it's not our problem, it's somebody else's problem. So that kind of really motivated me to kind of bring these students in this sort of environment where they do think about, you know, somebody else's problems can be your own, and you could be a stakeholder and sort of I guess, help make things a little bit better. And so I kind of struggled with it a little bit in the sense that the courses that I taught were not necessarily a natural fit for these kind of sort of projects. But I was able to figure a way out with the framework that the Fellows Program gave me, all the resources, the things that I was able to read. I was here in my first year, I was able to hear from second year cohorts on how they did it. And it really kind of was inspirational and gave me ideas on how I could do it. And so today I kind of wanted to highlight the most recent projects that I did. The flyer on the right is, it was a project that I did in 2018. I typically teach a retail marketing class, with normally in the class, students learn about, how the retail industry functions, how marketing is sort of an important element of it, and sort of some operational aspects as well. So what I did that year, I wanted to incorporate this sort of service learning aspect to it. Brian had a really great connection with the local soup kitchen, and I had volunteered outside of work at that soup kitchen, and I saw a lot of parallels between retail and how a soup kitchen functions, because essentially it's a restaurant, right? So I was able to bring my students, I asked my students to kind of volunteer for at least 3 hours at their own time, where they would go volunteer in the kitchen, and they would make sort of observations and reflections on how, let's say, if the soup kitchen were to be a restaurant, what were some things that they were doing great, and then also at the same time reflect on this sort of how their role is important in the soup kitchen at that moment, from sort of an ethical and sort of from a stakeholder perspective, that there are people out there that we should be more cognizant of, and there's a civic sort of obligation. So I would ask them to reflect on these 2 pieces so that I could really kind of tie it in with my course, which is retail marketing, and all the other professors are only talking about retail marketing, so I made sure that it kind of aligned with that, but at the same time bring this component of sort of civic responsibility. And so they did that, and then at the same time I also worked with a group of students who were sort of very interested in sort of civic engagement, and we designed this event which we called Bite of Fall. It was a pop-up market. We were able to, as you can see on this flyer at the bottom, all of these different stakeholders on campus and outside of campus that would typically give internships to these students. So this was sort of a fundraiser pop-up market that we were able to organize on campus. So because it's a pop-up retail market, the students get some kind of learning of the whole retail aspect, but at the same time, we are bringing in all these stakeholders to raise awareness about hunger, about food insecurity, and all of the money and all of the things that we raised were given to the soup kitchen. So we were able to sort of make a positive impact for our soup kitchen by volunteering and also doing this sort of event. And I think it was a really great experience. I saw in the reflections, I was so proud of my students, that empathy that is what I wanted them to have towards other people. And also at the same time, something sort of, I guess, a very positive side effect that I noticed in my class was that typically when students wouldn't necessarily feel the same level of comfort, but after they had this common positive experience of volunteering at the kitchen, they had this new camaraderie with each other in the classroom. The way they interacted with each other, the way they shared their experiences, so it really totally changed my class dynamics, in addition to, doing all of these. So that was one project that I did in 2018. And this project, which as you can see was supposed to happen on Saturday, May the 2nd, was a color run, but it didn't because of what's going on right now. But this was also, this was a very interesting project for me because, again, like I said before, I am not necessarily, given the constraints of the classes that I get to teach, I can't always weave this in, but it's something that I really value. So I found a different way to actually do some service. And so for this project, we have a marketing club in our department, and there's typically 7 students on the e-board. So I worked with the marketing student e-boards, and graciously Crystal gave me 2 of her Bonner students, and together we were raising funds for Valerie Fund, which is a nonprofit that raises money for children with blood disorders and cancer. And my marketing club students probably learned more from this project as they were planning than they would have from a Marketing 300 class. Because in this case, we were working with even though it's a small nonprofit, but they actually are very, very effective in raising a lot of money, and we were working with the marketing director of that nonprofit, and the students were working one-on-one with them. We had to, on campus, they had to kind of figure out how to make this happen, because color run on a campus is not necessarily as easy as they thought it would be. We were talking to campus police, we were talking to recreation, and all these other bodies on campus. So the students kind of, and at the same time, they really got interested in sort of this, again, this issue of having empathy, and they started talking to other people, because that club has not only the e-board, it also has all these members that come to their meetings, and suddenly this sort of issue became central and sort of main topic of their meetings, how we can make a positive impact, and what is our civic sort of duty towards people around us. So that was the other project, and I think the outcomes have been really fantastic. Well, even though in my school, this is service learning is not a very, popular model, but I was recognized for that. I got an award, a year or 2 years ago, about sort of incorporating this into my teaching. I was able to form relationships with so many sort of bodies on campus that I wouldn't have necessarily worked with. For example, Weekends at Montclair was one office that we were working with. And at the same time, I have now much more stronger relationship with some of the community partners that I work, for example, the Soup Kitchen. After this event, we actually went and helped them with something else that they were doing as well. So it's sort of an ongoing relationship with the community partners as well, that I'm able to sort of really build that trust and be able to understand what their needs are, and at the same time think how I can incorporate that in my courses and really address the student needs at the same time. And one more really positive effect of this whole fellows program is that because we have this cohort model, I have developed some really positive and sort of really great relationships with some of the fellows in my program. And Friday nights we have wine together very often and talk about community engagement. So that was a really, which I might not have met with them because they are in environmental sciences or they are in language and some other sort of colleges on campus. So it's really kind of put me in touch with all these places, and also just to have the support of Brian, Todd, and Crystal in so many ways that they support the fellows program. So it's, yeah, I think that's what I have. Is there anything else, Todd, you'd like me to address?
Manveer, that's great. But, I hope everyone can get the sense of what nerdy fun it is that we can get together once a month and talk about these things, and we can hear updates on the projects that are being done. And it's really so exciting. So one thing I'll mention is that it's such a shame that your Color Dash project, of course, was suspended. Something that I'm looking forward to going to a session tomorrow, which is about how do we maintain our relationships with our partners in virtual ways. When say a pandemic, gets in the way of being able to continue our projects. And I have a lot to learn about that. So I'm very excited for that session. But congratulations with these projects.
Thank you.
Yeah. Let's switch gears to Maria Jose. Thanks for joining us. And you're coming to us from the beaches of Spain.
Yes. I don't want anyone to feel envious or anything or jealous, but yes, I am in Spain, in the southeast, right on the coast. So the weather is beautiful, and I have just to close my balcony because it was too much going on there by the beach. Everybody can hear me?
Yep.
Yes? Okay. So I am thankful to the Center of Engagement for many things, but I think the most important thing is because they allowed my discipline to grow in a dimension that I never anticipated before. I teach translation in the Department of Spanish and Latino Studies, and translation is applied linguistics discipline. So it is not only to teach translation, but it makes sense to put it into practice, and to, as Todd said, it's applied an applied project. So I had in mind to develop a course on audio description for a long time, and I wasn't sure about how to do it. Audio description is a kind of translation, but instead of being a translation from one language into another, is a translation from one medium into another, from the visual medium into the oral medium. So this is why it is a discipline within translation studies. It is mainly intended for blind people or visually impaired people, but it is used for everybody who wants to use that service. And it is used in movie theaters, in museums, documentaries, in Netflix, everywhere. So before I continue, I'm gonna show a very brief video because I think that some people may not be familiar with what audio description is. So I'm gonna share the screen with you guys. And that will allow me to show you a very short clip from the movie The Hobbit.
The great eagles land on the rock and set the dwarves down. Gandalf runs straight to Thorin, who unconsciously lies on the ground. Thorin Oakenshield makes no move. Bilbo Baggins approaches, stops, staring at the Dwarf King. Gandalf puts his left hand above Thorin's face, muttering a magic spell. The Dwarf King opens his eyes.
It's all right. Bilbo is here. It's quite safe.
Bilbo Baggins feels relieved. The other dwarves help their king who is standing up. Everyone looks at the hobbit. Thorin begins to speak.
You.
Bilbo looks afraid.
What were you doing?
So this was just a short sample of what audio description is. And if you notice, the audio describer or the voice talent is describing the scene in between dialogues. So you cannot talk on top of dialogues and you have to be very precise. It requires a special technique because you have to be very precise. You have to choose the lexical choices carefully, the verbs, the adjective, you cannot repeat nouns. So I wanted to create a course on audio description, and a colleague of mine in the French department told me about the community of engagement group and told me that I should apply for the fellowship because my field of study was very pertinent to what the community of practice wanted to develop. So I applied for the fellowship and I got the fellowship, and I was admitted to the center. And for the first year I spent to creating the course and readings about pedagogy, about the skills, about civil and political engagement. And I found very useful these groups that we had with a mentor, even though maybe the word is not the most fortunate, but in my case was Maisa Taha, and she was so instrumental for my work. She was a second year fellow, and she gave me a lot of insights and experience, and we used to, the group of 4 or 5 fellows, we used to meet at least once, if not twice a month, and we shared so many concerns and difficulties, and I remember being there like desperate, I don't know who I'm gonna identify as a community partnership, I'm having problems doing the community outreach, and then we would talk about those problems and trying to find solutions. So to me, the first year was fundamental. And of course, from the support that I got from Brian and from Todd was instrumental in the sessions, in the plenary sessions, and also the lectures that we had with a couple of speakers. So I compiled all those materials and I created a course on audio description that I implemented on my second year as a fellow. In that course on audio description, finally, I could identify the community partnership. It was an off-Broadway theater in New York, the Repertorio Español. The Repertorio Español is a theater that offers plays in Spanish for the Latino community. And I thought it was a fantastic opportunity to explain to them what audio description was and if it was possible to partner with them. So I was there and I was talking to the artistic director, Rafael Sanchez, who was also a crucial piece in this whole project. And he was immediately fascinated by the idea. I told him that we could provide live audio description in Spanish for the visually impaired community in New York, and we could develop the audio description inside the classroom. So he immediately thought about the play. I had the perfect play. It would be a García Márquez Nobel Prize writer. García Márquez play, El Coronel no tiene quien le escriba, no one writes to the Colonel, because it's very visual, and it has so many details that it's perfect to be audio described. So we started to work on that project, and in class, we devoted class time for the script writing. And for the rehearsal, we have a video so that we don't have to go to the theater every week to New York. We had a video, and then we were talking also about accessibility. And we also were more familiarized with the work of Garcia Marquez and the symbolism behind the play. And we prepared something that was very successful and was a tactile experience, was a pre-show experience that I'm gonna show some pictures so that you can get an idea what it was. Before the play, we prepare a table with key objects of the play that the blind people could touch, and also some objects that make sounds so that they will identify those sounds later when they were listening to the play. Also, they were smelling some things, and the students were guiding them in this pre-show experience. So in class, I devoted some class time to assigned one student per blind person so that they feel comfortable and could be guided towards the pre-show experience. And also I show in class videos about how to lead blind people and how to offer them assistance when finding their seats in the theater or when going to the restrooms, using the audio description devices and headsets. So the students knew the protocol in advance. Students were also given the names of the people who were going to attend that play, so that the moment they stepped into the theater lobby, they were welcome. So one important thing about this tactile experience is that the students let the patrons, the blind people, touch the objects without telling them what they were or why they were exposed to them. So we let the blind people touch, smell, feel the objects, and we let them know that during the play, they would realize why those objects were important. So the purpose was to let them make their own inferences and interpretations without revealing too much of the message of the play. So I'm gonna share the screen once again, and I'm gonna show some of the pictures. So this is the program of the Repertorio Español, and then we did a Braille version of that. We did that thanks to the New York Public Library. They have departments for accessibility, and they provided the Braille program. And in that program, we included not only information about the play, the author, the cast, but also the audio description team at Montclair State University. So that was very exciting. More information about the program. So some of the students, this is the corner that we put all the objects. Or most representative, also very interesting, they have a miniature stage. So the blind people could actually touch, and they knew where the cast or some of the actor, actress were living the right or the left or the center. That was very cool. That's the artistic director, Rafael Sanchez. That's the Repertorio Español, that's the theater. That's the main actor that's the colonel. And she was the voice talent. She was the person, she's my student, Vanessa Carrillo. She was the person who was doing the audio description live. Some of the blind patrons entering into the theater, touching the objects. More students in the group. This is the flyer that we did, and we advertised that and made some marketing with that. Some of the students guiding the people entering into the lobby, helping them.
I'm going to jump in to say that I've put some links, I've provided some links so people can see news stories about this project. And also here, there's an NPR PRI piece as well that's linked about this project.
Right. So this is the voiceover team. Ideally, audio description, live audio description, you have to do it looking at the stage, but the resources at this theater, because it's very old theater, they are not the best, let me say that. And they had to see what is going on the stage in this black and white monitor. So the conditions were not the best. However, the students did an outstanding job nonetheless. So they were narrating what is going on a stage and helping people with the headsets. And then we had a Q&A, which was very interesting with the cast. And here, the blind people were able to give us feedback. And also they had an opportunity to meet the cast, the director. It was truly an amazing experience. She's one of the main actresses. Not only from the point of view of the academic point of view, of course, but also because some of these students didn't even know what was audio description. It was a service. It was a possibility for them as a translators and as a professional career, but also it was an opportunity to raise awareness about this service that is mandatory by law and the possibilities that the Spanish and Latino community with visual impairments can have thanks to this. So,
well, Maria, this is so exciting, and I think I can see that I see a comment that other people find it that way too. But thank you for sharing this with us. You know, we're about out of time, so I have to say that. Do you have one thing? Because I don't want to cut you off totally. Do you have something else you want to add before we move on?
I just wanted to say that we repeat the experiences. We repeated the experience with another play. I don't know if I can show like 5 pictures really quick.
Sure, please do. Yeah.
We did the same experience with a play by Juno Diaz, Pulitzer Prize, The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. We did this in December, the same experience, live audio description. This time was more of a comedy, not a drama. So people have an amazing time laughing. And we did the same thing, tactile experience first, the pre-show experience. And then with the students helping blind patrons, touching the objects. And then we have a Q&A as well with the director and the cast. And it was a fantastic opportunity. And at the end of this semester, last thing I say is that they have to do a reflection paper. They have to reflect about the experience, not only in terms of the academic discipline, the audio description and what they learned, but also about the role of accessibility in the arts in a bilingual society, such as the one in New Jersey and New York. Thank you.
Thank you. So I hope that you get us, these are just 2.
I forgot one thing, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, please.
I nominated my students for the American Council of the Blind Awards, and they won the award in performing arts.
So good. So please, I urge people to take a look at the links that go to news stories about the work that you've done. So really great. So I hope that these are just 2 of the projects that many fellows over the years have done. But I hope it gives you a sense of the kinds of work that people are doing and the ways in which the CETL program supports them in that work. I apologize. My goal was to spend the last 10, 15 minutes having some conversation, and I've managed time so poorly that we don't have time for that. Ari, I wonder if there's a way, will there be open kind of Zoom sessions at other places where people can just chat? Oh, she had to go to another session, I think. Oh, is she there?
There's one right now, actually, that's starting called Bonner Bonding, and you can go in there, and it's going to be kind of open and casual. Allie, one of our interns, is running it. So we kind of said there may be some different folks that come in and may want to just, it's like a break, like to go.
Okay. So would you recommend, can we use this one for 5 more minutes just so we can talk a little bit?
This one is actually set to go to 1:15. Like,
oh, it is, okay.
Yeah.
So anybody who wants to leave to go to that particular chat breakout, which sounds great, can please go ahead and do that. But anybody who wants to stick around to really talk about your own work, about ideas that you might be having, about questions you have for us, this is a great time for us to take a little bit of time to chat about that if you're able to stay. And by the way, Ari, I never introduced you. I'm so sorry. Ari is the one who's responsible for all of this, making all of this happen.
Much decades now, but I was just going to say, excellent. Thank you so much for all of your excellent remarks and presentation. And I was going to put something else in the chat that you all, it's in the Bonner Learning community, but as you all were talking, it reminded me of, I know Ruth Castle was on the call, but we had a different webinar with Marshall Welch, who used to run the Bonner program at St. Mary's in California. And is the author of a book that's for faculty development and community engaged learning. And his colleague Star Moore from University of San Francisco did a really big lit review about what are the best practices of faculty cohorts to do this kind of work. And one of them that they found that was often missing from most programs was a theory, teaching the theory of some kind. It doesn't just have to be community engaged learning theory. It could also be like community practice theory that you're sharing. It could be specific anti-racist theory. It could be a lot of different theories, but having that be part of the faculty teaching and learning process. So I just want to commend you all for also like really illustrating that in your work. So
thanks. Did you say you shared a link about that?
A link because Marshall and Star did a webinar for the CEL initiative earlier this year, and we taped it, and it's on this platform also. And then you can see the book, and you can go to the book. But
great, very, very helpful for everyone. Thank you. So I invite any thoughts that you might have, questions, ideas about your own practices from what we've talked about here today, and feel free to just jump right in.
Hi, this is Amy Michael. I'm from Rutgers, New Brunswick, and thank you so much for sharing this. And Crystal knows that I've been trying to pick her brain about how I can replicate something like this at my own institution. And as I was listening to this, the one question that I had is that, it seems like faculty kind of come in with their interests of like what they want to do, and how do you, or is there space for community partners to kind of come in with what they want to do, and then do you do like a matching? Like, then do you try to recruit a faculty member who would address that, or does that not kind of come into play at all?
Well, that's a really great question. And at the center of everything is and should be community partners, right? Because we're not doing things for, right? We're doing things with. Something that we've, first of all, Brian and Crystal maintain a wonderful network of community